Do you know the way to San Jose?
Okay, San Jose Spartans squaring off against a fellow Northern State Wolf, GA Tim Miles. Tim Miles was a GA. Funny story. Tim Miles was a GA when they recruited me. Him and Paul Sather were both working for Bob Olson at the time. And obviously you guys know my story about Bob Olson, who recruited me for 7 Pheasants back when NIL was, before NIL actually happened. 7 Pheasants to my father sold me off to the Wolf Pack. But funny story is that Paul and Tim were recruiting me. We were in Minneapolis at a tournament. I was playing for the Gillette Merchants, our AAU team, which was our high school team in the summer, run by Mike Ladke up there in the old wonderful Campbell County. And we're in Minneapolis playing, and they're watching me, and Miles looks over at Sather and says, "Hey, Paul, did you know that Janet Jackson's playing in Minneapolis tonight, the Velvet Rope Tour? Let's get out of here and go watch Janet." And so they left my game, because I probably wasn't very exciting, to go watch Janet Jackson, who was really exciting. And so that's the Tim Miles. Tim Miles he's the ringleader right there. He's obviously one of the most charismatic individuals you've ever been around. He's outstanding human being. A lot of respect for Coach Miles. Obviously done it a long time at a high level. But I will never forgive him for leaving my game to go watch Janet Jackson and the Velvet Rope Tour, just so we're clear on that. But I love this league. I love these league. These coaches are so good in this league. And San Jose is a lot like us right now. I mean, we're 179 in Ken Pond, they're 180, metrically matched in a lot of ways. And both teams that have the ability to get hot and have the ability to kind of wreck some seasons, so to speak. But also are fighting for every single inch in this league. So this is a massive game. I told our guys, they got to have the intent and the intensity that they had at UNLV. I always believe that if you have a desperate energy, the desperate team wins more often than not. And I don't know why we wouldn't feel like we need to have that desperate energy, because it's been us as a staff and then hammering that away for the last week now, just in practice, about how desperate we have to be to perform and to execute and to compete at a high level for the rest of the season. And so I wouldn't expect us to come out flat against these guys, knowing that the approach that we've taken as a staff. But once again, that also is there needs to be a commitment from the players to approach every game and every practice that way as well. And so that will be the test.
You feel some positive momentum just coming back from Vegas, just the rest of the week? Yeah,
you're only as good as your last game, right? It's how the world works. You're only as good as your last game. And so UNLV was a glimmer of hope for me, just because we emphasized, and we will continue to emphasize, playing the right way, sharing the basketball. That can't change. Playing that selfless and that unselfish, and those guys that I thought there was a couple things that happened at UNLV that were really important. One, there was an understanding and acceptance of roles that we talked about after CSU. And then 2, there was a happiness and a joy for somebody else's success other than each person's own. And I felt that, we felt that as a staff, and that's what being connected means. And then when you're connected like that, I think that's where that relentless competitiveness comes, to not wanting to let people down. I keep talking about Jay Taylor and Cole Henry, but Cole was battling lower back issues, and he was a tough sucker that game, man. He was a tough sucker, and he forced Jeremiah Bear-Cherry in some tough shots late in that game. And every single one of our guards won their one-on-ones and forced their guards into tough contested shots, which is the reason why we were so good defensively that game as well.
Speaking of roles, I was talking to Dante yesterday. He kind of said that there was a bit of a reality check for him a couple weeks ago when he just obviously wasn't playing as much. He feels like he kind of turned it around mentally, just playing defense. Have you kind of seen that out of him, just with him specifically? In
the minutes he played, and he's been one of our better defensive guys metrics. Pat Monahan measures every single minute you play and your matchup and the points that are scored on you. And at UNLV, he gave up 0 points in all of his matchups. And so that's really efficient on the defensive side. That's what it takes. And that's why his length, we were talking about his length at this level, could impact the game, but his mentality and his approach to that as well. I think if you focus on things outside of the uncontrollables, like shooting, like if you focus on defense and rebounding and playing hard and being a great teammate, then I think the offensive side kind of opens up. I think when you put too much pressure on yourself to score the basketball or to try to do that in a multitude of ways, like he's going to be a 3-and-D guy, man, at the next level when he wants to play pro. He's going to be a shooter who can defend, and then his weapon is his shot, so he's got a shot fake and punch. And then you can get some momentum going to the basket. But if you try to mix it up and have a bunch of variety, you know, you get a buffet, you got too many choices, you get decision fatigue. And next thing you know, you got a plate full of crap that you don't know what to eat, you know? So just do what you do well and do it every single day. And that's, I think, where he's narrowed his focus, which has enhanced his performance. And he's got to continue to stay locked in on that.
You were joking about Pat State, saying you're going to be a good shooting team, and then sometimes you're not. But did you feel like those 4 teammate threes, those were the right shots?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get an assist, 18 assists on 22 made baskets, I think it's the right shot, right? Because you're rewarding rhythm. I think it's really hard to get a rhythm when you're just isolating yourself and shifting with the basketball, and then you shoot a tough shot off the bounce. I think those are the shots that teams want you to take. We call those scout stops in our program. We want other teams to take those shots. We don't want to take those shots. But that's also, once again, acceptance of the role, right? Like understanding who we are and what we're about. And I thought Jordan Nesbitt played his best game of the year as far as what he was seeing. And instead of trying to force something, he saw it. He saw the next one. And that leads to 6 assists. And he's a really good passer. Like he can see the ball. Like when he really looks and really playing the flow, he can really see it. But I think sometimes he sees this, right? It's tunnel vision. He sees scoring, and that's what doesn't lead to that next pass or that one more for us. And so he was a big part of the reason why we had such good success here in the basketball. Morning, sunshine.
How encouraging
Sonny,
is that?
You kind of touched on this, man, but San Jose State is just a handful of possessions from being right in the mix of this thing.
Yeah.
Do they remind you of you guys at all as far as maybe just having a lapse here or there or something that kind of costs them?
Yeah, I mean, it's in possession games, man. It's a break here, a break there. I mean, they had a good break against New Mexico, and got some bad breaks against Utah State, right? Like, it's a break here, a break there in those possession games. And I think we always overcomplicate it. Everybody's like, oh, this or that, and you can look back at the things that made you lose, but it's a make or miss, or it's a stop or a score, right? Like, that's the difference in a lot of those possession games that they have. And they make everything, they junk it up, man. They make everything, every game, a rock fight in a lot of ways. They're never an easy out, right? They're never an easy out. And they just have good guards that can defend their position. And then they have a good big in Viola and Sungjape, can't say his last name, but you know, like they have good bigs that stretch you out, and one takes you to the paint, and it's a good combination. It's a good recipe for winning and success. So like they remind us a lot of us. They don't play as slow as us. We're 357 right now. We're 7 teams away from being the slowest team in the country. So I told you, we're getting closer, guys. We're getting closer. As Larry would say, holy shit, you know, we're getting closer.
I'm kind of putting words in your mouth here, Sonny, but Tuco and Scotty didn't play in that game. Was that sending a message, and if so, how did they respond? They're
great on the bench. I don't send messages to people personally. Like, I just try to do what we got to do to win the game. That's it. So, you know the motto, if you want more, you got to do more. And you got to continue to show that in practice. And just matchup-wise and minute-wise in the last couple of games that we played, it hasn't been a big advantage for us, and Oleg's been stepping up, and Cole's been really consistent. And in that sense of the word, and obviously Abu's done what Abu does, is roll at the 4 spot. And I thought it was really good rhythm and flow versus UNLV, and didn't want to mess with that very much. Thought the energy, the effort, enthusiasm was right, and a lot of that to me is like, you want to be a part of that and then get in the rotation. It's like you got to come with that right mindset every single day, that mindset of giving rather than taking, service over self-interest. And I thought they were great on the bench, great energy, and so no issues with them personally. It's just a matter of every day you got to continue to show up, and if you want more, you got to do more.
So you pretty much rolled 8 guys aside from Will's playing a little bit, but are you kind of going by feel good with that, or are you going to try and stick with 8 and shorten the bench a little bit? You'd
like to, but every game presents its own unique obstacles and challenges. I mean, there could be foul trouble, and I honestly think this is a game where Scotty could actually be very impactful against Viola, because those are 2 manimals out there, man. You need another guy who can stop him from getting to where he needs to get to, because he's a load. And Scotty obviously has that defensive presence when he's locked in, so I never rule anybody out. And then Toko's got to be a pick and pop threat for us, and use them in those situations, right? They're kind of like closers right now, and relievers, middle inning relievers. You know, you might pitch them an inning or two and see where you're at right here, just to kind of stretch it. And if it works out right, man, you got a really good chance of closing that game. But they're specialists in a lot of ways for us, and so we got to play them in the right moments.
I have one more for you, Sonny. What were your real thoughts and emotions as you watched that lead dwindle from 11 to 2?
I was kind of in flow that game too. We had these little courtside people sitting next to us, and you know, we were up 9 or whatever, and I looked over at them. I said, "There's a lot more ways to lose a game than there are to win a game with about 50 seconds left." And I was just talking to these little 2 kids that were sitting down there, you know, and it's just, that's what happens, you know. Like you don't quite think it's going to go that way. You don't expect Kobe to trip and throw the ball right to the other team. You don't expect Obi to get a reach around right and get that thing poked out. You don't expect the free throw block out to go all the way back to the free throw shooter, you know, says you don't expect the transition 3 to go from the back of the rim all the way out to the 3-point line. Like, there's just things that happen in those games, and I sat there and I was like, you know what, this is why athletics is crazy, and this is why you should never gamble, right? Because it's just like, I couldn't imagine if you're sitting there like that type of stuff. I mean, but ultimately too, you know, like, you got to learn how not to lose before you have to learn how to win. And these teach tapes are going to be so valuable for us going forward in our program, but also for the guys that come in next year too, to be able to take these lessons and talk. I mean, we talk about special situations all the time, and I constantly teach you this stuff and show those guys the last minute and a half of the game. What's going through my mind is like, I just don't panic, because what we'll be in a lot of ways. And I told the guys, like, I got to be better at making sure that everybody's in the right position. You guys know, like, the refs came over to me with about 25 seconds left, and they always say, like, make sure your guys are strong with the basketball. I said, why do you think the refs tell us that? It's because they know that they're going to give the opposing team one good swipe at it. In a lot of ways. In a comeback situation, like, they're going to give them one good swipe at it, and if you don't handle that rock, and if you're not strong with that ball, like down the stretch with a Kobe and Obi, like, they're gonna let it go. And that's on us for not being strong enough and sure enough with the basketball. Because ultimately, you got to make your free throws down the stretch too. And I mean, look, missed 2 front ends and 1 and 1s, and then Mattia went 1 for 2. So essentially, we went 1 for 6 down the stretch. That ain't good enough to close out games.
How's team health at this point in the season?
Good, outside of just sickness and stuff. I think there's some flu going around. And, who knows what kind of flu it is? Swine flu, bird flu. Who knows? Nobody knows. Just flu all over the place. But health is good. No major injuries outside of guys just needing to take some Pepto-Bismol.
You guys good?
Good to go?
You guys good?
On the